Well, I guess the best advice is to find out what you like to do, and then everything with the diabetes will get solved afterwards. So the best thing is to find out what makes me happy, and then do that. And then if there's a problem, go to the doctor. And exactly, if you want to travel or make some kind of physical activity, climb a mountain or whatever, then there is always a way to handle this with technique or pumps, or maybe back to a pen if you can't have it with you in the water or something. Find out what you dream, and there is always a solution.
Welcome to the Type 1 in Midlife podcast. My name is Melissa Slemp, a certified nutritional health coach and the founder and CEO of Abundant Health with Melissa, where I help women with type 1 diabetes to feel more empowered and live their best life despite their diagnosis. Each week, I will bring conversations and strategies from guest experts and my experience living with type 1 for over 40 years now. So if you're a woman ready to redefine how diabetes can look and feel for you, then the Type 1 in Midlife podcast is the show for you. Hello and welcome to another special episode of Type 1 in Midlife podcast. Today we'll share an inspiring journey of determination and resilience from our guest, Sara Greve. Imagine being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 5 years old, yet our guest didn't let it hinder her. She vowed to become a diabetes doctor and succeeded, now at the renowned Karolinska University Hospital. From a national athlete to diabetes advocate, she's dedicated to bettering lives. Our focus today, type 1 diabetes, diabetes tech, and exercise's role in diabetes management, especially for those struggling with hypo-anxiety. And a twist of fate turned her from an insulin pump skeptic to a tech enthusiast, embracing diabetes advancements. And her journey is extraordinary, proving life with type 1 diabetes can be vibrant, can be full. And in this episode, we'll discuss exercise as treatment and her 33-year diabetes journey, and answers from a seasoned endocrinologist. Hear about the impact the group support has to help you both tactically and emotionally with diabetes. And be sure to connect with our Sara Greve on Instagram, and I will link that here in the show notes as well. For more insights from Sara, she is a true joy to watch and to grow close to on Instagram. So whether you're managing diabetes, caring for someone, or seeking inspiration, get ready to tackle challenges with empowerment. So, and just a note to make sure to follow Sara on Instagram. And again, I will link that here in the show notes for more inspiring content and insights into living life with type 1 diabetes. So stay tuned and be sure to click the link here in the show notes as well to learn more about my group coaching circle, as we definitely dive into all of the amazing attributes of getting together with other women, growing closer, and sharing this journey of life with diabetes. So get ready for a great show. Hope you enjoy. Just a reminder that nothing you hear on this Type 1 in Midlife podcast should be a substitute for professional medical advice. Please always consult your medical professional before changing your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. Hello and welcome. We are here today with Sara Greve. And hello, Sara. So glad you decided to spend some time with me today.
Hello, I'm also excited. It's the first time I'm doing this, so it's fun.
I love it. And like I always tell my guests, we'd like to come on and just have a conversation. I think people appreciate that. And we're two ladies living with type 1. So tell us a little bit about you. And today we really want to inspire and let others know that we can live a full life with type 1 diabetes. And you are a perfect example of that. I know that's something that I work on every day as well. So tell us a little bit about your day-to-day, maybe even your diagnosis story, if you want to And then we're going to dive into the fact that you are a doctor helping others. So there's so many different levels of how diabetes affects you in your life.
But maybe it's a good start with the diagnosis story.
Sure.
And I was 5 years old, so now it's over 30 years ago. And I don't remember very much, actually. I was gotten it told most of it. But my mother told me I was very tired, which wasn't like me. And I didn't want to go out play and so on. And suddenly went to the doctor, and I had diabetes. And I had no, like real symptoms like weight loss or thirst or anything like that. But I think they got the idea of that because my father has diabetes also. So maybe they thought about it a little bit faster.
Okay.
But, back then, like 30 years ago, you was in the hospital for quite some time being diagnosed. Today, working as a doctor, we have people being diagnosed and they go home like a day later. Now when we know what it is, they are on insulin and they can go home and then come back to the clinic every other day and so on. But then I was admitted for like 1.5 weeks. And what I remember is I was very anxious because I have my birthday is right before Christmas, and I was worried if I would go home in time for Christmas because it was just before my birthday. This
typical
is
worry of a 5-year-old, right?
Exactly. So this was like the big question in my life at that point. And then they started to talk about these needles, and I was going to stick myself and so on. And my father has diabetes also. And I was just worried because my father has diabetes, but also psoriasis. So he had these red marks on his body. And I, as a 5-year-old, thought that these red marks was due to the needles. Right. So that was the only question I had. Will it hurt? And do I get red marks from this?
Fair questions. Yeah, fair questions. Yeah. That's so much to take in so young. And so it sounds like maybe you were diagnosed because you mentioned that your symptoms weren't as obvious. So maybe it was on the earlier
I think
side
it was
of the diagnosis.
Very early. Exactly. I have never had very high blood sugars like there in the start or anything. And I know that a part of those days at the hospital was to just see how my blood sugar was. And then I guess they measured antibodies and could see I had type 1. But it took some time, also 30 years ago, to get the answer of these things. So I think it was really early, and also that we had it in the family. So that's why they got.
Okay. Yeah. They didn't search too long. And you, well, you're in the system now as far as, and we can talk more about this. And if our listeners haven't caught on, you are Swedish. So, and that's another whole, I guess, world medical system. I'm assuming it might be different where you are from compared to the United States. Have you had a chance? I know we're jumping ahead here, but this is kind of how the conversations roll because we just we bounce off what we're talking about. But have you noticed, is there a difference with diagnosis and treatment compared to the United States?
My answer is no. There's no difference because everything, it's very good. Because, everything today is very global, and we go to these conferences, share everything. And if something is new in America or Australia or any place, that it will get shared in the same conferences. So, and all, treatment guidelines and so on are decided by, the top people in diabetes making the guidelines and so on. So we do the same and measure the same things. But then it's different, I think, living with this condition in different countries because insulin costs differently and you get different help from society. And it's some places it's easier to get a pump than other places and so on. So I guess these things are different. But the diagnosis and all of this, the medical treatment, that I would say is quite the same in developed countries, of course.
And you mentioned global, which is interesting, because it's good that everybody's getting this information from the same resource, which makes it consistent, right?
exactly. But maybe I took it a little bit too far, because of course it's different. Not developed countries do not maybe have the same facilities and so on. So
That's true.
it's a bigger difference. But here in developed countries, then I guess we get quite the same treatment, at least.
Yeah, treatment is such a broad term, because we can say that about the United States as well. And unfortunately, it's demographics, it's income level, it's education,
Yes.
it's the accessibility. There's a lot of layers that determine how well a patient
Yes,
is
and this
cared
is
for.
also something we discuss a lot. Just in Sweden, you could say that living in America, Sweden is a very small country, but still there
Hmm.
is, of course, differences. Like some regions have these pumps and other regions have other pumps and so on. But overall, everybody can have a hybrid closed loop pump. Maybe different types, but you have the opportunity at least. So in that way,
Yeah,
it's
that's
the
really
same.
good. Yeah. So tell me about so what inspired you? Because you can share your work as a doctor. And because again, we're talking about how we can live our life full. So at what point did you decide, or was it always this way for you? Maybe it was your family life, or just the routine you lived in, that you always had that love for life, and no matter what, diabetes or not, that it wasn't going to stop you. So we'd love to hear that.
That is a super good question, because I don't really know life without diabetes. Being 5, I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember not having a needle or think about what you eat, or higher and lows and so on. So I don't really know how it would be. But I think that actually diabetes have given me something. Like I burned to show people how you can live a completely full and nice and good life also in this condition. Or also in my work, I meet a lot of people who think this is very, very difficult, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is super difficult, but and there is a possible you can do this, and I just
Yeah.
want to show a way that you can. And also because I was 5 getting the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and when a child who's 5 in the hospital, every person you meet ask, and what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
And
A common question. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And maybe the third time I heard that, that week in the hospital, I said, I'm going to be a diabetes doctor. Because
Oh.
already very, very, very early, I I found out that some people didn't really get the questions I asked. And also as a child, you kind of get that not everybody gets you. Because this
Mm-hmm.
condition, like, it's in everything you do, and you think about it so many times a day that discussing it with somebody who doesn't get it feels like you don't get anywhere. So
Yeah.
I think that was the reason I wanted to be a diabetes doctor, as I told
Mm-hmm.
when I was a child, because I just wanted to make other persons who thought it was difficult and just, show another way, I guess.
Yeah. So you knew that from the beginning. So once you got older, you decided to study, and
Yes,
so you went
exactly.
down the road with medical. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you know what? My diabetes doctor, when I was 5, he told me that he thought it was a bad idea to be a diabetes doctor, because there in the 90s, they started to work with stem cells. And he said that
Okay.
when you have grown up, there won't be any type 1 diabetes anymore.
Oh, that's an interesting. Well, he was trying to project something or predict something. Unfortunately, he didn't
Exactly.
get that right. Yeah.
No, not
So,
right.
mhm. So tell me about your lifestyle, because I know you're very active. You and I are very similar, and I use my lifestyle to help nourish my diabetes. So it's kind of like, you can use diabetes to affect your life, or you can use your life to affect, or and I mean affect in a good way, your diabetes. Does that make sense? So I try
Absolutely.
to, and that's kind of how I coach, and I'm sure that's how you you can tell us more about how you work directly with your patients, but it really is just working on that foundation of all the things we know we're supposed to be doing every day. But when those things are strong and consistent, sure, blood sugar is easier to manage. Not easy, just easier. Yeah. And exercise is a big, yeah.
I think many of us have, gone out for a walk or something when it's you have a 20 or 400 reading on your blood glucose meter. It helps. And, lying on the couch after a big meal, you will get hypoglycemia. So it helps a lot. But I don't really know, because today I do a lot of exercise, but it's like, just in me as a person, I get, worried being still too long at the time.
Yeah.
And growing up, I started doing athletics like 7 or 8 years old, and found out I was quite good at it. And when I was older, I was in the national junior team, and just doing that. So right then and there, it has nothing to do with my diabetes. I never thought of diabetes being like a problem doing athletics or any other sport. And this was, quite many years ago, and I didn't know as much as today, but it worked. You took less insulin before a training camp, or also doing a lot of training, then everything gets easy, because then it's not, the hard thing, like 1 day a week where you do exercise. Then it's a big difference from the rest of the life. I think it's much easier if you do a little bit every day, and you get it in your routine, and you have a higher insulin sensitivity and need less, and can cope with the swings a little bit easier. So I think training makes it a lot easier to manage diabetes and blood glucose.
Yep, 100%. 100%. And that's something that I think people, maybe newly diagnosed, they tend to be a little, maybe a little anxious about low blood sugars, or what exercise can do to our blood sugar.
Absolutely.
And as you know, the stress of it with cortisol can point it up, force us to have higher blood sugar. But to me, and it sounds like for you as well, it's part of my treatment plan. Exercise is one of those factors. So to rely on exercise to make insulin more efficient, and not to mention how much and it helps how we feel. So it gives us more energy. We sleep better. When we sleep better, we tend to eat better. When we eat better, we tend to, it's one circle. And I know you agree. And it's the hardest part is getting there. You just have to kind of figure out what that's going to look like. And everybody's so different. So yeah. And I definitely see, I see that, that difference. Now, do you include resistance training, so weight training, and that into your routine as well?
I wish I did that more. I try to do it once a week.
Okay.
I just find it boring. So
that's a funny reaction. I love it. Hey, to each his own, right? Yeah, there's no judgment. Yeah.
Mentally, I think it's best running, or doing like something for a long time. You get your thoughts like you get your thoughts in a good condition. You can think and relax and so on. But strength training is really, really good, and I really try to do it once a week.
Okay, yeah, that's a good reminder. I mean, I've always incorporated that. That's just been something I've always done. And then as we get older, our bone health and bone density is important. So that resistance training is good for that. Speaking of hormonally, and I would love to hear like maybe some examples of patients that you've worked with. And is it newly diagnosed? Is it all ages? And then you can maybe speak into hormones, because I know this is starting to get a little bit more attention. Now, I'm 56. So when I was in my reproductive years, I'm even younger than you. I knew nothing about my monthly cycle affecting my blood sugar. The doctors, it never came up. I never thought to ask. It was just another variable that was kind of creating that roller coaster when I wasn't in as good as control as I am now. So it's amazing. But it's good that we are hearing more about this. Yeah. So what do you think about that? Is that something that you're addressing as well, or seeing how that's a factor throughout our cycles?
Absolutely. Like actually mostly women, because we have the cycle and more hormone swings and so on. Of course, it gets like a bigger problem, but a lot of women are affected by the menstrual cycles and have higher blood glucose, right up to your menstruation, and then it goes down. Your sensitivity increases right after, and it has to do, of course, with estrogen and so on. And it's a huge impact of your insulin sensitivity. So in the clinic, it's a lot of women I recommend going onto a pump, because then you can increase or decrease your basal insulin levels and so on. It's a little bit more difficult being on a basal insulin, like Tushi or Chisibo, the really long ones. It's more difficult to make small changes a few days here.
Yeah.
So I think pump therapy is good in this area.
Yeah,
and it's a big problem, and I have a lot of questions about this. And I think actually, like, women 30, 40 years old are really have a problem with this.
Yeah. Again, it's I think the best thing we can do is to be prepared when we go to the doctor. Now, do you find like when you're meeting with your patients, how much time you're spending with them, what the conversation is about? And I'm just going to throw this out there, because I know typically here in the States, there's not a lot of quality time with our doctors. It tends to be very number centered. So it's all about your numbers. They're not really asking you what's happening, all those hours of the day that's really pointing to why your numbers might not, your A1C may not be, within that goal rate. So, and that's all, that's obviously why I help women too, because I'm like that, that helper, that step that they can kind of turn to, because I think that's really what's missing is the conversation. And I don't think they feel empowered when they're going to their doctor. They just know that they're going to be told that this is what needs to happen, or so it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I also think so, because also you meet your diabetes patients like once a year, sometimes maybe 2 or maximum 3 times a year.
Right,
exactly. The year is like 365 days long.
So there's
a lot of days. A lot happens. And also, a person comes to the doctor and the doctor asks, how is it going with the diabetes? It's like, a so big question that you don't really answer it, because it's so stupid.
That's true.
But and it's like this week is like this, and the other week was different. So I think that maybe the appointment or the treatment we do in the hospital or clinics should be educating our patients, so they can manage these different things on their own, and of course call us or make appointments when it's needed. But we need to find what is hard for you, and then we should have like a education about that in our clinic. And we do a lot of these group sessions where we talk about carbohydrates or anxiety for hypoglycemia or training and insulin and things like that, to gather it up. Exactly. So that's how we try to handle this.
Kind of fill in that gap. Because there tends to be a gap. And then the gap, and over the years, our issues change, just depending, like if you're going through, pregnancies or changing of jobs, moving across the country, there's so many different, because life throws variables at us. So it is important to kind of tune into what the issue is at that time to get that support on. And so, group support is amazing. There's a lot of support groups like here and throughout the world. But I think when women and specifically what the listeners were talking about today, when they can just come together and know that they're not alone and to talk about it. I've led some groups as well. It's pretty empowering. And, it's interesting because usually speaking, like I have a group coaching circle, I call it right now, and I host it. We pop on. And what I love, and maybe you witness this witnessed this as well, is they just, and it takes time for these relationships to develop. It might take a couple sessions for them to get to know one another, but I can just sit back and just take it in. And they talk it out amongst themselves. And then every once in a while, they'll look at me and then we'll talk about a topic. That is so amazing. They feel, again, that they've got a voice in the issue, we'll call it an issue or a question, and they can hear and share amongst themselves. And then together we can come up with, the next step that they can take. So I think that's the best thing. I love it. And it's validating too, because, you can come to the table thinking, oh my gosh, this is just my problem. I think I'm the only one dealing with this. And no, you're definitely not the only one. You're not alone. And and that helps too.
Totally
I know, like
agree.
with my group, then they know what to bring back to the doctor. So we'll talk about something and they'll say, okay, well, I'm going to talk to my doctor about that, because obviously I can't give medical advice, but it's just to kind of, again, empower. I keep saying that word empower because we want to feel confident about what we're feeling and what we can do to kind of conquer that.
Exactly. And also these groups make it easier for you to, get words on what's the problem and take it to the doctor and know what to ask. But that could also be difficult, also because diabetes make, swings and shifts, and you think it's just the diabetes doing something. But when someone else have the same, problems in the same situation, then you get like, okay, is this something I can do something about?
Yeah, it sure opens it up. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
And I completely agree. I love these group sessions because sometimes the more, important the topic is, the more people share, the better it is. Sometimes you just have to make persons, introduce who they are, how long they have had diabetes, and what we're talking about today. And then, the simmer just starts and they start to fill out each other's sentences. And, okay, you have also had this. I thought I was the only one in the world, and so on. So I think it's so good. And just sit and look and, come with a little, to the next step. And often we have, like sessions with exercises, and sometimes we have to drop an exercise because the group have just done it just by themselves.
I love it. Yeah. That's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Most definitely. Nice.
But I think a lot of persons don't have so many other persons with type 1 diabetes to talk to. It's a quite usual disease anyhow, but there's a lot of persons that don't have, a friend or someone close by they can talk to, so they do think they are the only one in the world.
That's true. Yeah, we do feel like we're the elephant in the room is what we try. That's a term we use here. Like you're the only one going through it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So one of the things that you just mentioned, hypo anxiety. I'm seeing that a lot, and it depends on different situations. But can you share about that? So what are you seeing with your patients, or maybe even with yourself, if this is something that you've had to kind of overcome, and if you have any tips about?
Like
fear of lows, right?
Yeah, like I think there are different things in your life, like moving away from home where you're a teenager and start living by yourself. Then it's suddenly I'm all alone. What happens if I have a low at night or something like that? And I also think that when especially women have children, then they start to think, okay, what if I have a low when I'm out alone with my children, or it's me and my children home alone or something like that. So that is like different periods of life when it's more difficult. And I have had, like a severe hypoglycemia where my husband needed to, call 112. We have here, I guess, your 911.
911.
To help then have a glucose and get it up and so on. And after that, of course, you are worried this will happen again if you didn't really know what it was. So I think having had these episodes is really important to you, and think back what made this, because I think almost always you can find, okay, it was too much insulin or too much training the day before. Always there is some episode that made
Yeah.
it. Then you feel, stronger that, okay, I know what it was, and this is not something happening every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in our sessions, I think it's the persons we have in these, group sessions are very different. Some people come because we, as a doctor or nurse, have asked, how do you have about anxiety for hypo? Because you have a blood glucose at 400 all day long, every day, a week. That's like, one symptom of having anxiety for lows, then being very high, so you don't get low.
Right. Keep it high.
Or maybe if you have, yeah. So that's, dangerous over time because you will get complications. So it's like one way to get blood glucose down is to handle the anxiety for the lows.
Yeah.
But it can also be
important to get to the root of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that it's not often the person maybe know by themselves. They think, okay, I'm at 400 and it feels okay. I don't have any symptoms here. So I think this is good for me.
It feels
I guess
safe. It feels safe, even
safe.
though they know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And deep in, of course, they know. But when you ask them, they say, "Oh, I think this feels good."
Yeah.
And then we talk about that.
Yeah.
And other persons, they have had a severe low, and other people just are very, very afraid for the symptoms, because a symptom of a low is a lot of the same as anxiety. It's the same hormones making you feel low and shake, and that your body has to hide glucose. It's the same as having an anxiety attack. So it's very, very unpleasant.
Sure. Right. So it's really the anxiety of how it makes them feel.
Exactly.
And I wonder if just that loss of control, there's definitely some of us that want to feel more in control. And obviously, as we both know, diabetes is not a disease we can control. We do the best we can every day. And then we've got to and then make adjustments, right?
Exactly.
So do you think, because I've seen this as well. I've witnessed this with other people, is that and there's so many other things in their life that at least they feel like they have control over. So it's that one thing that they can't predict always. So just like you say, maybe it's safer to just keep it at a higher number, because it sounds crazy, but we're not crazy, but it sounds backwards, but they can control staying high. It's easier to do that, isn't it? As we all know, you can eat or just avoid insulin, which is unfortunate. But there's ways to do it to stay in that higher safe zone. So,
Exactly. Yeah. And also a lot of people, having jobs where they present things, or, held in big meetings and things like that. They also feel like losing that control, in a hypoglycemia, it would ruin their job opportunity. That's also, another big part of the diabetics I know that feel that.
Yeah. It's that vulnerability.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially, you bring up a good point, because I know here, in the workforce, that environment is that we are supposed to be tough, in control, not making mistakes. And if we are, then it's like a dent in our armor. So, but we need to show vulnerability. It's important. And I think it's an opportunity to grow closer with people, our coworkers, people in our life, to say, hey, I'm here, I'm good at my job, but guess what? I'm still human too. And this is something I have to deal with every day. So just to,
exactly.
And
to be
also, able to get that support.
Yes, exactly. And also, I think that it's a good thing to share with people that you have diabetes. Like, it's not a curse or anything strange. It's a lot of people having diabetes, and it's just good that your surroundings know that sometimes maybe I need to have a little sip of juice to, feel okay again. And sometimes I need a little break, and I think it's completely fine. But a lot of persons don't want to tell the world that they have this condition, because it's like, a little bad touch of saying you have diabetes. Okay, have you trained too little? A lot of superstitious things is still there.
The stigma it's a term
It's
that we
stigma,
use
exactly.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stigma.
Just
Exactly.
that's stereotype.
Yeah,
Yeah. Based on,
exactly.
and it's not just diabetes, there's other illnesses, that kind of
Absolutely.
come with that stigma as well.
Mm.
And it's like you said too, it really is about educating ourselves and those around us, to give everybody
Yeah.
a chance to really learn more about it before they jump to conclusions as far as what they think they know. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now you are in the research and working or the tech areas, as I should say, right? And there's actually a funny story about this because you shared it with me before we jumped on here.
About tech, yes, I know. Today I work a lot with diabetes technology, and I am like it's my area in my work. I like technology, and I try to get the best technology to our department and so on. Go to all the tech presentations and so on. But there, being a child again, I got a pump like 7 years old, I think, and we got home. And the first thing I did, it was to put this pump in the drawer. The kitchen drawer. You always have a kitchen drawer where it's pens and things you don't really know where to put. You put it in this single drawer.
We have drawers like that here too.
Yeah, exactly. Every kitchen has this one drawer.
Yes, call it a junk drawer.
Yeah,
that's kind of yeah.
And I thought 7-year-old me thought this was the perfect place for this insulin pump thing they have gotten me at the hospital, because what should I use this for? And it was, with a tube and everything. I thought this was really, really stupid. So I put it in there, and my mother came to me, oh, should we look at it again? And maybe, and if, and everything. I was, no, I refused to open it. So here now, 30 years later, and I'm like a specialist in diabetes tech. I think it's just fun that I was such a negative for this in the start.
It's a lot of irony there.
Also,
yes,
a little bit, but also the pumps back then, 30 years ago, they could nothing like they can today. So if it was the same pump today, I would still have it in the drawer.
Oh, understood. Right. We've come a long way. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Definitely. So I needed a hybrid closed loop before I started with a tube pump at least. And now I'm really, really glad for it.
Yeah. That's really cool. And you were a CGM, I'm assuming as well.
Yeah. Dexcom I use.
You use a Dexcom. Yes. Same here. Love it. Yeah.
We're
very fortunate. And as you know, I mean,
exactly. And I think everybody remembers, the first time you tried a CGM or FGM, the Freestyle Libre. And, the feeling of knowing your blood glucose without pricking or blood or all the waste and, everything. So I think everybody just remembers that first look at some device, knowing is it going up, going down, arrow showing. Fantastic.
I know the information is just incredible. It's just such a game changer. Definitely.
Exactly. There's never going back after starting.
No, it is what it is. And I think the biggest thing is just watching the trends and we were just talking about low anxiety. So how do you feel about, so as far as advice to give, because I tend to be a little bit more, I guess, black and white when it comes to when it comes to low anxiety. But I've always felt that as long as we, whether we're going out the door, we're doing something different, as long as we have what we need to solve a problem, whether it's a high or low, that gives us the security. And meaning sweet snacks or insulin, those are the two things that we need. We either need help going higher or help going lower. And so it's definitely about having a plan, being prepared.
Exactly.
And sometimes we can say,
I always say that you can do anything you want to if you just have your pen and a bag of yellow bears.
Yeah,
Because
same
then
here.
nothing
Yes.
dangerous can happen.
That's right. Problem solved. Yeah. Yep. You've
Yes,
got all you need. Yeah. And it's just, and I think we just need to practice, those that have this issue is to just practice and to maybe stretch their comfort zone. It takes a little bit at a time to feel, and to watch yourself succeed and know that you
exactly.
did okay at, say, a blood sugar of 150.
Exactly.
And to just sit in that and to witness that and say, okay, yeah, I can do this, and,
Exactly. And just change the set point of what's comfortable and what does
comfortable.
not give you this anxiety. And just,
That's
keep,
true.
because often you have to remember that anxiety doesn't kill you. It's very, very uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. So if you have a blood glucose, that's okay, but the arrow goes down, like many persons with this anxiety having in your count, it's like 180, a little high, not very high, and arrow down, they, panic and say, okay, 180, arrow down, I will die in half an hour. And then we talk a lot about, just wait 5 minutes. Where does it go? Does the arrow go much down? Does it, ease out? Or what happens? Because an arrow down doesn't mean it will keep going down forever. It will also stop.
Yeah.
Hopefully at 100.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't jump to make a decision yet. Yeah. You got to wait and see. Yeah, that's a true test of just being comfortable in what that number is. And of course, because this is part of, I'm sure, what you educate and live, living with type 1 is knowing what, insulin on board, food on board, activity on board, all those things that affect blood sugar. So, and it can be a logical decision to, just like what you say, just knowing everything and to put all the factors and say, no, I just had lunch and I know I got insulin on board. It's going down, but yeah, just like you say, just wait and see. And just to feel, just find a way to feel more comfortable. Well, that's real helpful because I know this is a topic that I get asked a lot. So it's just really nice to talk with you. So not only a doctor giving us advice, but somebody that lives it herself. So very, very good. I appreciate that. So speaking of doctor visits, so could you give our listeners some suggestions? Like you say, we typically see our doctor 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes less. It just depends. As far as, how they can best prepare for their visits.
Yeah.
And or, like what questions to bring up, whatever pertains to where they are.
What questions to bring up, it's super, individual. But I think it's a good, to have like a little list in your phone or something where you, during these weeks or months up till the appointment, you just put down, words to say, okay, I thought about this, because when you walk in the door, it's so usual that you forget. And when you ask, have you found something you want to talk about today? I think there was something there. It was, but I don't really remember, So I think it's good to put it down during the year or the month or whatever, because you will forget, and make a list. That's the best. I usually ask the patients when they come in, what do you want to talk about today? Because we have limited time. Yeah. And also the numbers, here in Sweden, everybody can look up the numbers before they come in. They take the blood samples ahead, and they can by themselves look at the answers. And we know if they are, in the limit or not. So this goes quite fast.
That part of the conversation. Yeah, understood.
Exactly. Of course. Yeah, and if they're way out, like lipids or blood pressure, something is completely out, we need to check that also. But I usually start with what the patient wants, because then we can do all the other things later.
Right. It does start with what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and what we may be worried about or just have a question about. So that's really good advice. That's something that I always advise too. And I mean, and that's good for everybody. Again, diabetes or not, when we have those annual visits, to go in with an idea of what you need from the doctor, because they're here to help us. So, and they can't read our minds. They
No,
can't assume
and
everything
also,
is good. Yeah.
no, exactly. And also sometimes maybe it's a problem you don't really think you can get a help to
Mm.
solve, but you don't never know if you don't ask and
Mm.
tell us what's difficult, and maybe we have something to help with.
Yeah. Really good. Really good. Now, do you have any advice as far as experience and as a doctor living a full life with diabetes? Is there something specific? We've talked a lot about just our lifestyle and what fuels us, and you have a family and children, so I know that's a big part of why you live full. Your family probably keeps you busy and active. So it is amazing, all those things that are kind of on the outside that really do make up our world, is really what's going to determine whether or not our life is full, or if we feel that we're feeling kind of burned out or kind of drugged down by diabetes. So, yes. So, what kind of advice could you give our listeners?
Well, I guess the best advice is to find out what you like to do, and then everything with the diabetes will get solved
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. So
Yeah.
the best thing is to find out what makes me happy, and then do that. And then if
Keep
there's a
doing that.
problem, go to the doctor. Exactly. If you want to travel or make some kind of physical activity, climb a mountain or whatever, then there is always a way to handle this with technique or pumps, or maybe back to a pen if you can't have it with you in the water or something. You
Right.
know,
Right.
find out what you dream, and there is always a solution, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. 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 Generally speaking, yeah. Yeah. There is always a solution.
But there
Yeah.
is, but maybe
But and
many people don't think
yeah.
that.
No, you don't. Yeah, you're right. And I think, and that's the other side of it too. I've written articles and I've talked about it here with other guests too, is just to feel that they do have hope,
Yeah, exactly.
and accepting their disease, accepting that this is a challenge that they have. We all have different challenges. This just happens to be the
Yeah,
one, that God gave them, and they are
yeah, no,
strong.
exactly.
Diabetes is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness by any means. And just believing that they can do it.
Yeah,
But
and
it takes
also
time
because
to kind of.
having,
Mhm.
yeah, but exactly, and also having diabetes, it gives you some good things in life, because you need to think a little bit ahead, and you need to
Mhm.
know a few things, and it makes you stronger because you always have this with you. You need to cooperate, and is like a lifelong school of you
It
know
sure.
having
Yeah.
two things in your mind at a time and so on. So I think you
Mhm.
should think of it like it's strength in a way,
Mhm.
I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. And that's a
But I also
motivator too.
understand it.
Yeah.
Yes, but also I think maybe I'm like irritating positive, because I don't know life without diabetes, and I
Mhm.
had a very mild diagnosis and everything, and I also have someone in my family with diabetes, and
Yeah.
very much support around me, and I've been to the university like 8 years learning about this. So maybe
Mhm.
it feels like I'm super positive, but I think it's no different for anybody else. You
Yeah.
can do everything if you just set your mind to it.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. It starts with our thoughts and how we're seeing
Yes,
it. Yeah.
exactly.
Most definitely. Yeah. Really good. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add and share with our listeners today? And then I'm going to definitely let them know how they can keep in touch with you.
Yes, they should, because I love when people, I have an Instagram
Mm-hmm.
account, and when people ask, like, I want to start running, or I have a child just having gotten diabetes, what should we bring to the forest? Like
Oh, these
simple
questions.
questions in life,
Yeah.
which is huge when everything is new. So I
Mm-hmm.
love when people ask these things, and I try to answer as best as
Mm-hmm.
I can.
Yes, I love that too. Yes, yes, yes. We get it, and I think that is the connection too. I think you as a doctor living with it is just it's special. It's so unique, and it makes that level of care just so much more impactful, just to be able to sit and to talk and share and to get really good treatment plans from somebody who understands just like you do. So,
you know what? It's not every time I tell my patients that I have diabetes, it's not like I'll introduce myself. Yeah, it's not like, they come into me and yes, my name is Sara and I'm a doctor and I have diabetes. It's not the start. But sometimes, maybe 50% of the times, during the conversation, you have the same patients several times, but like 50-50, I tell them or not. And often I see this, you get the eye like, okay, you do know what I'm talking about. And usually I wait, until there is like some kind of problem, or sometimes I say like, oh, it's like when you think like this or do like this. And then they start to, look at me like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, it just, yeah.
So I think it's a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like it just naturally comes up in conversations, which is important, right? Yeah. Because obviously when you're meeting with them, the conversation should be directed towards them. And exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. Well, really
sometimes when they're struggling, with something, and if I have had the same struggle, then I told them, okay, I think this is just super hard and irritating, frustrating. Diabetes sucks, I know. And then we take it from there.
Here you go. For them to be able to know that, that you understand. Yeah. Yeah. That's just so valuable. Really, really good. We will link in the show notes your Instagram account. So it's Sara, it's SARA _type 1 active. And again, we will link that to make it easy for everybody to connect with you. Such a vibrant, alive, full of life vibe about you, and it's amazing.
Thank you very much, Melissa. It was so nice being here, and I love talking about diabetes. So it was so fun. I hope this can be used for someone.
Most definitely, yes. And yes, I just encourage everybody to reach out to Sara, and have a beautiful day. Thanks for tuning in to the Type 1 in Midlife podcast. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right here on iTunes. And you're invited to connect with our Type 1 in Midlife community on the free Honey Health app. Here we discuss the podcast topics in a group chat, a chance for you to ask questions and take action on what we share here on the show. You can find the app link to download for free right here in the show notes. And for free resources, you can visit me at abundanthealthwithmelissa.com. And your support means so much. Thank you.